And I always say the men and women didn't wear the uniform for the pats on the back. They didn't do it for the medals. And if you look at over 16 million Americans went to war in World War II, and they came home, and we look at their DD Form 214s, and you realize none of them have medals. A lot of them don't have what campaigns they were in. They just wanted to come home. They didn't care about all that stuff. But if you think about the men and women that have served in uniform that never got recognized for certain awards or certain promotions because the color of their skin. And that's why it's really important to have this discussion this month to talk about that, to really look at how far we've come, but how much further we still need to go. And with everything in this nation at the fork in the road that we are right now, we don't want to repeat our history. And I always say you have to remember our history as we go into the future so we don't repeat the mistakes we made before. And the only way you're going to do that is if you have discussions like this, frank, open discussions that are uncomfortable, that sometimes people don't want to hear, that sometimes people just want to ignore that it never happened, but it did. And the only way we can truly still be that greatest nation in this world is to have them frank discussions and be better citizens based on that. But watching Wayne over the years up in the assembly just cracks me up. I've watched members go up to him and said, "Hey, can I get a cup of coffee?" He goes, "Where's that in my job description? Coffee's right over there. Go help yourself." But he rules the floor with an iron fist, and with a big smile, and with a big hammer when he has to. But he's not here for that. He's here because he served in Vietnam. And he served our country, and he got 2 Purple Hearts, was wounded, came back, and like everyone else, struggled. And unlike today's war, where we can address PTSD and we have the mechanisms and the support for soldiers, not just on active duty, but in the National Guard and Reserves, back then you came back from Vietnam, you didn't have anything. No one even wanted to talk about being in the service, and you struggled a lot of times on your own. And that's the hardest thing. And the fact that 22 service members a day commit suicide is something we have to keep in the forefront of why this is happening. But Wayne, you've just really have led your life with inspiration for everyone around you and for everyone to look up to you and to show that regardless of what can happen to you, you can still achieve great things in life if you put your mind forward for that. And you have done that. And
we're here fighting a war. We're supposed to be fighting together, and here you are calling me names. And I have to trust you to be on my side and have my back. But those are the things that you go through, when you're fighting a war. Everybody is not on your side. But don't worry, the name doesn't bother me. Doesn't bother me, because as long as you don't call me Baby Killer or Robert McNamara, everybody lives, because it's just a name. And the ones that were saying it were these very ignorant people that we had to protect, just like we have to do for everybody in this country. We fight for the whole country. We even fight for them, and. Those are some of the things you have to go through, but God brings you through. God takes you through all of that. God gives you the wherewithal to get through, to deal with people. I deal with so many people on a regular basis that I don't think anything surprises me anymore, what people say and what people do. I just smile and just keep going. But it's an honor to be with these gentlemen. Let's give these gentlemen a big round of applause because they're here with us today. We're going to start with these gentlemen here. I've read their bios, and I got to tell you, they're very impressive. These brave young men who gave their all fighting for their country, and I must tell you, I'm very proud of them. They looked at me and they said, I told them I was the old man, and someone said I looked like I was 45. You get lunch. You get lunch. I haven't been 45 in 45 years. We're going to start with Glenn Hicks.
As far as my experiences in the military being African American, when I first started, it was hard for me, basic training, because I'm from New York. We're the melting pot of the world, so I went to basic training with some soldiers that never seen a black person before, and I know it wasn't hard for me because I grew up around everybody, like I didn't see color, but it was hard for them, especially me being a bigger person. Sometimes the bully isn't always the big guy. The bully can be the guy that's looking for attention. So I can relate back to one experience when I was in AIT. There was a couple guys from Kentucky. They would, slip notes up under my door. I'm going to hang you. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And I would, I would brush it off. Because I played high school football. And I wasn't like a tough guy, but I could handle my own. So one day I went to call home. Back then we still had the pay phones, so it wasn't cell phones. You put the money in, you call home. So I'm at the pay phone, I'm calling home, and the one guy, I can remember his name is Buck. He was about 6'6", huge guy. His friend was small, who was the real bully, but Buck had his back. So I'm on the phone with my mom, and then Buck comes up, he grabs the phone, he hangs it up. So I let all this muster stir up, and I'm like, what am I gonna do? They're sliding the notes, and now they're getting kind of physical. So I just pushed them, not thinking. I took it to the physical part, which I shouldn't have, but I pushed them, and then they jumped on me. Needless to say, I came out on top. I had a female Spanish drill sergeant and a male African American drill sergeant. They actually wanted to kick me out of the military for, assault. But they, went up to the DISCOM sergeant major and the colonel and everything, and they actually pushed to keep me in. They moved me to a different unit from like Bravo Company to Alpha Company. And after that, I didn't have any other problems. But my one drill sergeant, I can remember his name, Drill Sergeant Griffin. He pulled me aside. He's like, "Look, I'm sure this isn't the first time you had an issue, because of the color of your skin, and it won't be the last. It's not what they do to you, it's how you react to it." He told me, he's like, "Look, if it's verbal, you just take it with a grain of salt. If someone puts their hands on you, you have to go to your chain of command, because I was able to help you out in this situation, but going forward, you have to help yourself out, and then I can push forward the next incident where there was an issue because I was, black was when I was deployed. My first sergeant, this was at Fort Stewart. I don't think he was racist. I don't think he was prejudiced. He was just from the South. He had a Confederate flag in his truck. Never treated me or the other black soldiers differently. But my squad leader, he was different. He would, his main word when he would talk to us is say, "You people." There's a group of black people standing around saying, "You people do this and you people do that," and I knew what he meant by it, but there was some guys that really took offense to it, and we actually had one of my friends when I was in, he actually got kicked out, for insubordination because he would, retaliate verbally to some squad leader, but when we were in Iraq, everything's heated, you're going out on missions, you're getting shot at, lost a couple of friends early on in the deployment, so that stresses on you, and we're in a tent, and we're cleaning up the tent, and it's me, a couple other African American guys, and there was a Spanish guy. So we were cleaning the tent up, and then he just storms in there. He's like, "You people need to start cleaning this tent. This tent's messy." And I just snapped him like, "What do you mean by you people? Like, we're already cleaning." He's like, "You know what I mean, you people." I said, "There's only black people over here." He was like, "Well, I don't care what it is, just you people." So I should have thought back what Drill Sergeant Griffin told me. Don't get physical. But in the heat of the moment, luckily, we all carried our weapons and everything like that. So I unstrapped my weapon, I gave it to my friend Wright, and I said, it's going down. I said, "I'm tired of this guy." So, I did what I shouldn't do. I grabbed him and threw him down. I said, "I'm tired of you, you people, we're all soldiers, we're here, we're fighting, we have our lives on the line, and all you care about is the color of someone's skin." So I had to go see the first sergeant. I had to go see the company commander. Had some extra duty. Luckily, I was a good soldier. They put me on extra duty, and I did my extra duty. And I have to say that was a changing point in my life where I was like, you know what, I can't always, be or consider myself the victim and attacked physically. I have to let them know that, what, you're naive to the things around you, but we're all people, and it's okay that you judge me by the color of my skin. And I'm not going to judge you by, the content that's coming out of your mouth or who you are or where you came from, but I just, if it wasn't for the Army, I don't know if I'd be here right now.
I told you the bad part, but I want to tell you that on April 20th, 1967, when I got wounded, guess who was laying by me till a helicopter came? My two Southern buddies. They had finally realized that we all were on the same side, and they said, we're not going to leave you until this helicopter comes. Sometimes people learn that it's just the color of your skin. It's just skin. We bleed the same way. We feel the same way. And we're here fighting, the same war. You don't have to bring your war into this. We're all here doing the same thing. And those two guys, and at that point I was like, okay, it's a little late now, but I was but I was glad. I was glad they came to their senses and stood there and laid with, because I was scared to death. You know what I mean? And it was those two. Don't tell me God doesn't have a sense of humor. He does. He really does. Next, we're going to have Master Sergeant Miles Beecham.
I remember hearing Maya Angelou, she was speaking one time, and she said, when people show you who they are, believe them, but that doesn't mean that, you have to go to or towards that way. So I always try to keep the become the best version of yourself mentality in mind, and that's how I try to structure my career. So during the deployment, it was I'm not gonna say it was an awesome time, because we lost soldiers as a division, but it was, like I said, it was the brink of midnight moment in my life. We didn't grow up rich, we didn't grow up poor, but this was the time where I had the most money I've ever had, and on my own. So I was able to make decisions after. But I also had met a great community of folks, being the folks in the 42nd Infantry Division, and some lifelong friends. That being said, because that transition that some of my leaders saw, they decided, and I was hired to go on state active duty, to stand up a training battalion. Did that for 2 years. Met a couple other great set of guys, still lifelong friends, and then unfortunately one of my best friends was killed in a car accident, and he was full-time Army, and I wound up I was able to take his job. To me, what I'll tell anybody, black, white, whoever, in the military, the best, the secret, the key to just being in the military, whoever you are, is to be ready. I owe most of my success in the Army is from being the most ready person in the room, that according to myself, and being present, showing up. A lot of people, and I hear this especially from a lot of black soldiers that come to me, and some white soldiers and whoever, they always psych themselves out before the game. You gotta show up. And even if you feel you're gonna fail, you still gotta show up. Public speaking is probably my greatest fear. It's something that I struggled with my whole life, my whole career, and it's something that, you guys saw me, I asked him, I said, how do you get up there and do it so good? He goes, you gotta just do it. And then it's I'm like, oh, he's lying to me. It's one of those things. But it's true. You gotta you gotta be present. No one's gonna be perfect the first time, the second time. It's just about imperfect action, just taking action and being there. And as far as being African American in the military, look, I've never, like I said, I've never faced what I perceive as, direct hardship or racism or anything like that. I think that there's a lot of cultural differences. When I first moved, like I said, when I first moved here, I didn't know there was a Troy, New York. I didn't know that people hunted. I didn't know that any of these things went on. So the questions that I asked might have seemed silly to the people I was asking it to at the time. But even if I was laughed at for asking those questions, when they saw that there's a genuine interest from the people I asked, it was just more of a, oh, you really don't know. Okay, let's talk about it. And then the same thing for the things that I used to do. I used to put like ketchup on my steak because when I used to have, I used to eat steak and cheese sandwiches. We didn't use steak sauce. So it's just like the little cultural deal. Same way I deal with my millennial soldiers right now. It's just like, all right, you're on your phone. You're not looking at me. You're disrespecting me. But it's not that. It's just perception of events.
This next gentleman has a most impressive resume. It was a pleasure reading it. His name is Corey K. Cush.
Kept opportunities from me. I haven't personally experienced it. I've seen it, but I haven't personally experienced. What I'll say is that where we sit today as a military, I think it's probably the most diverse organization that you'll find today. I'm happy to be a part of that organization. I can tell you that I sit on many boards that have African Americans, that have females, that have other backgrounds and races. And whenever we decide the next leaders in the state, that's a diverse group that decides those leaders. And I've been part of many different organizations on my civilian aspect, and I'll say there's probably no, from my perspective, greater organization in the military. Now, that doesn't mean we don't have a lot to work on, because we do. And, just like we witnessed today, and I believe you may mention it, is our country is unfortunately seems very divided, and it hurts me because I think I love this country. I think it's the best country on the planet, and I've been to many other places, and everything has every country has its good things, but I don't think any country as great as the United States of America. And I just hope we all come together and realize that we're all one people. We all we may come from different backgrounds. We may have different religions. We may see different things different ways politically. But at the end of the day, it's all about respect. And it's being treated with respect. And if we put that first, everything else would be easy.
July of 2000, in 1967, I was coming home from Valley Forge General Hospital. When I say to you that the N-word is not the worst thing you can be called, I was carrying my duffel bag and had a cast on up to my waist, and I was on crutches, and I dropped my bag outside of Penn Central, and I was getting a cab. I dropped my bag outside the cab, and the cab driver says, "You're one of those baby killing from Vietnam." He says, "You can pick it up yourself." So some things are worse than others, you know what I mean? And but I've been from the time that I was in school in the Little Red Schoolhouse in Stuyvesant, New York, saying to myself, why has God got me down here in Stuyvesant, New York? All of that prepared me for all of this. You know what I mean? God has a way of preparing you for everything that you do in your life. And I thank God that He prepared me, because I got to tell you, I wouldn't have been prepared for this, for any of it. We have one more that didn't come. His name is Gene Carter, but today we're going to honor him also. Gene joined the Army in 1966 at the age of 17. He did basic training at Fort Gordon, Georgia. He was sent to Vietnam in 1967 to 1968, and he worked in the post office in the Albany area and retired in 2013 after 13 years.
We do have a proclamation for Black History Month for 2018. And also, I want to remind everyone, February 12th, here in the Cahill Room, we're going to have African-American women that have served in the military that will be here. And actually, Wanda Willingham will be our moderator for that day, so look forward to that, Wanda. But I have coins for you. We like to hand out coins in the county also. So I'll have the legislatures give that to you. And thank you for your time at your day. And most importantly, thank you for your service to this country and leading by example and teaching the next generation that it can only get better, but we have to remember our past to get better. But I will leave you on this note, and I always like to say this. Less than 1% of U.S. citizens serve in the military at any given time. And right now, there's 330 million Americans living in this country. Think about that. Less than 1% don that uniform. To give us the rights. And I always say to everyone, hey, we can agree to disagree. I don't care about your philosophy. But that's the great thing about this country, because of veterans and soldiers that have given the ultimate sacrifice, give you that right to live here. And that's why I think Sergeant Major said it correctly. This is the best country you can live in.